So what I see here, at the end of March, they owed 6.6 billion ounces, the value of gold, and at the end of June it was 8.7 billion. The Bitcoin was 7.6 billion and it went up to 8.9 billion. I've got the price of gold here on the two dates, on March and June, and the price of Bitcoin on the two dates, divide one by the other, and I get to the fact that as of March they held 92,646 Bitcoin, but as of June they had sold about 9,000 of those Bitcoins to only have 83,000 Bitcoin. On the other hand, gold is moving the other direction. At 31st of March, they held 2.1 million ounces of gold, and as at 30th of June, they held 2.6 million ounces of gold. So they've obviously acquired more ounces of gold at the same time they've been selling Bitcoin. So they've acquired 500,000 ounces of Bitcoin. 500,000 ounces of gold. I beg your pardon, you can't weigh Bitcoin, it's digits in the air. They've acquired $500 million, not 500 million ounces of gold, and sold 9,000 Bitcoin roughly. Now you probably know that Tether is the stablecoin company which issues the stablecoin known as USDT or USD Tether, and it's commonly known, the stablecoin is commonly known as Tether. Recently, Tether has been buying gold and selling Bitcoin. Now that might surprise you because Tether and Bitcoin almost go together. Tether needs Bitcoin and Bitcoin needs Tether. And if you need any further evidence of Tether's love of Bitcoin, you need look no further than the independent auditor's report of the Financial Figures Reserves Report as of 30th of June 2025. Let's just have a quick look at that. So here's the report. It's by the audit is by BDO Binder Hamlin. We'll skip that. BDO is the name of the auditor, and we'll go to the figures. So this is the Tether report, which is signed by the directors, and that's the one which has been verified. And we'll go to the assets. So I'm scrolling down to the assets, and we can see here, we're on the right page now. You can see here Bitcoin, item 4 in the other total, is $8.9 billion. Of course, the biggest asset up at the top here is US Treasury bills, which is over $100 billion. And they have to keep those Treasury bills because they have, and the related cash, the repurchase agreements and the money market funds and so forth. They have to keep it because they might get redemptions of their Tether tokens, and they have to be able to meet those redemptions in full. But they are making profits, and they can put some of the profits into other assets.
The June 2025 attestation by auditing firm BDO highlighted Tether's enormous holdings. At the top sit U.S. Treasury bills exceeding $100 billion, ensuring liquidity to redeem tokens. But beneath those, two key positions stood out: billions in Bitcoin and billions in gold. Compared to March, Tether's Bitcoin stash shrank from 92,000 coins to roughly 83,000, while its gold stockpile grew by 500,000 ounces. This means Tether shifted over $1 billion out of Bitcoin into gold. Such a move suggests caution about Bitcoin's volatility and a calculated hedge against the weakening US dollar and financial instability.
So that was the first surprise, well, not surprise, but the surprise I saw was the line above this Bitcoin line, which is this one, and it says $8.7 billion of precious metals. So we're talking about $8.9 billion of Bitcoin and $8.7 billion of precious metals. And I want to know what that is, so I scroll down to the notes and I see note 11. The precious metals category comprises LBMA, London Bullion Market Association, standard physical bars owned by Tether International SA de CV. So it seems that Tether owns precious metals as well as Bitcoin. It likes both. Now, I'm wondering why they would buy gold when clearly Tether is very, very closely allied with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin needs Tether, Tether needs Bitcoin. They must love each other, and obviously we know that Tether loves Bitcoin by the $8.9 billion of Bitcoin they hold. So what's going on with them buying gold? Has someone tipped them off about something to do with the dollar? Or are they just fearful of the dollar? I mean, obviously they've got two very big assets here, the Treasury bills, and they're obviously not wanting to necessarily put all of their profits in that. And they've got the Bitcoin, and clearly they're not putting money into that at first sight. Maybe we'll find out in a second. But they clearly have got a lot of gold, and has someone tipped off? Don't forget, most of the, or not all of the business they're doing for the Treasury bills is with Cantor Fitzgerald, which used to be run by Howard Lutnick, who is now Secretary of Commerce, who's obviously a very important person, a very connected person, and he has publicly defended Tether's holdings of Treasury bills in the past. So he and Tether have got a very close relationship, and Tether has got a very close relationship with Cantor Fitzgerald, which is the firm he used to own, which when he was appointed Secretary of the Treasury, he gave that firm to his children. So what's been going on with the holding of gold? How did that come about? So what I did, I thought I'd go and look at the previous report, which is here, and just bring it up. And I see this is the one from 31st of March. And I see the gold was a lot less. It was 6.6 billion, and Tether was a bit less. Bitcoin was a bit less, at 7.6 billion. But the gold has increased a lot. So crunching these numbers, I decided to pop them into an Excel sheet to see if they've been buying or selling gold, and whether they've been buying and selling gold and Bitcoin. And
from March to June 2025, Tether's gold reserves ballooned from 6.6 billion to 8.7 billion. This wasn't a passive price gain. It was active accumulation. Meanwhile, Bitcoin exposure was trimmed, signaling a preference for hard assets with less volatility. Gold's reputation as a monetary anchor during uncertain times could explain this adjustment. Rising global debt, U.S. fiscal strains, and central bank gold buying may have influenced the decision. By stockpiling bullion, Tether positions itself alongside sovereign wealth funds and central banks that see gold as a hedge against geopolitical risk and dollar dependency.
So what I see here, at the end of March, they owed 6.6 billion ounces, the value of gold, and at the end of June it was 8.7 billion. The Bitcoin was 7.6 billion and went up to 8.9 billion. I've got the price of gold here on the two dates, on March and June, and the price of Bitcoin on the two dates, divide one by the other, and I get to the fact that as of March, they held 92,646 Bitcoin, but as of June, they had sold about 9,000 of those Bitcoins to only have 83,000 Bitcoin. On the other hand, gold is moving in the other direction. At 31st of March, they held 2.1 million ounces of gold, and as at 30th of June, they held 2.6 million ounces of gold. So they've obviously acquired more ounces of gold at the same time they've been selling Bitcoin. So they've acquired 500,000 ounces of Bitcoin. 500,000 ounces of gold. I beg your pardon, you can't weigh Bitcoin, it's digits in the air. They've acquired $500 million, not 500 million ounces of gold, and sold 9,000 Bitcoin roughly. How much is that worth? Well, the gold they've bought is currently worth $1.6 billion. And the Bitcoin they sold is worth over $1 billion. So what do we see here? We see one of the biggest fans of Bitcoin and one of the biggest holders of US Treasuries deciding to reduce their exposure to Bitcoin and deciding to increase their exposure to gold. But that was back in June. And what's been going on since then? Do they still love gold? I'm wondering.
Tether's gold strategy took another turn in September 2025. The company invested $100 million into Elemental Altus Royalties, a Canadian royalty firm merging with EMX Royalties. Unlike mining companies, royalty firms don't dig gold but collect a share of output from those that do. This model offers leverage to gold prices without rising production costs. With more than 200 royalty interests, half already producing, the merged entity has vast growth potential. Tether's stake ensures exposure not only to physical gold, but also to a scalable high-margin play directly tied to global gold production trends.
Well, let's have a look. So I found an announcement which interested me. In fact, it's only an announcement for 2 days ago on the 4th of September about Tether getting more and deeper into gold. So here it is. This is actually an announcement by two gold royalty companies. They're merging together and they're talking about the merger. So the company called EMX Royalties and the other one is called, the acquirer, if you like, is called Elemental Altus Royalty Corp. Elemental Altus Royalty Corp. So the two companies are merging. The merged company will be called Elemental Altus. But when I look at the announcement, I find this paragraph here, you see in blue, I've highlighted the blue, and it says that Tether is making a large investment into Elemental Altus Royalties Corp. So I'll just read the announcement, or that bit of the announcement. Concurrently, and in support of the transaction, Tether Investments SA de CV, Tether, and Elemental Altus have entered into a subscription agreement dated 4th September 2025, the Tether Subscription Agreement, pursuant to which, among other things, Tether has agreed to purchase approximately 75 million Elemental Altus shares at a price of 184, $1 for an aggregate gross proceeds of $100 million US, known as the Tether concurrent financing. So Tether has decided to invest $100 million into a gold mining company just 2 days ago.
Tether's moves cannot be viewed in isolation. Its deep relationship with Cantor Fitzgerald, led by former CEO Howard Lutnick, now U.S. Commerce Secretary, ties it to Washington's financial core. Lutnick has defended Tether's Treasury holdings in the past, and now Tether is diversifying into assets outside U.S. government debt. This dual strategy, holding Treasuries for liquidity while hedging with gold, may signal unease about America's rising debt crisis. With the U.S. facing unprecedented deficits and the dollar's role increasingly questioned abroad, Tether's pivot could reflect insider caution about long-term dollar stability.
So this shows that Tether still likes gold. But the question is, why would they invest in a gold mining company? Not gold mining, a gold royalties company. By the way, a mining company is very different from a royalty company. A mining company digs the gold out of the ground. A royalty company gets a share of the gold which comes out of the ground because it's lent money or given money to the mining company. So royalty companies collect money from the proceeds of sale of gold, which is dug up by mining companies. So why has Tether decided to invest in a royalty company, which is, to all intents and purposes, a leverage play on gold? Now, just a sort of little bit background here, and I'll come back to how it's a leverage play in a second. Elemental Altus Royalties Corp is a Canadian company. It's quoted on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and it's going through this merger with EMX Royalty Corp, whereby EMX shareholders will become shareholders in Elemental Altus. So the surviving company will be called Elemental Altus Royalty Corp. Now we come back to the leverage play. The beauty of gold royalties is that it's a pure play on the gold price. So how does it work in practice? A royalty company will lend or invest money in a company which doesn't have enough money to dig up the gold they found. So typically they'll lend the money or give the money or invest the money with a prospecting company. So a prospecting company has found some gold, it's had it verified, it's all been assayed, everyone knows it's there, but now it needs to be dug up, they don't have the money. So what a company like Elemental Altus Royalties will do is finance them to dig that gold up, but in return the agreement is you'll give us 10, 20, 30, 40%, whatever the figure is, of the gold which comes out of the ground. And So the more gold which comes out of the ground, the more that Elemental Altus will make. And of course, the higher the gold price is, the more they'll make. So it's quite a leverage play on the gold price, because the higher the gold price, the more the royalties go up. But the costs don't rise. Unlike a mining company, when you dig up more gold.
Why would Tether, the backbone of global crypto liquidity, favor gold over Bitcoin at the margin? It could be diversification, risk management, or perhaps foresight into coming monetary turbulence. Gold royalties offer leveraged upside in a world where central banks continue to expand reserves and the dollar's credibility wanes. Tether's billion-dollar bet suggests it sees gold as more than an ancient relic, it's a future-proof hedge. Whether this is simple strategy or a sign of looming systemic cracks, one thing is clear. Tether is preparing for a financial future where gold regains center stage.
Your costs rise. If in the case of a royalty company, they dig up more gold, the royalty company just gets more gold. It doesn't have any cost at all. So with the new money, which Elemental Altus has now got from Tether, they will be able to acquire even more royalties. Now, just put that in perspective, they own something like 200 royalties already, about half of which are producing. I'll come back to that in a second. So Elemental Altus owns around 200 royalties, but now they've got another 100 million in the door, which has come from Tether, which they'll use to buy more royalties. So the greater the number of royalties, the greater the cash flow. And as we know, when we look at other royalty companies, the bigger the cash flow is, the higher the share price is relative to the net asset value. So the very large gold royalty companies have quite a high price compared with the net asset value, and the very small ones have quite a low price. So clearly, increasing their size of royalties will make them more important and increase the share price, should increase the share price relative to the net asset value. And with half of those 200 odd royalties that it's got already being in production, it means the other half are not yet in production, which means there's a lot of extra gold to come out of the ground in the years which come. So this is a growth situation that Tether has decided to go into. And there's a few other things which will benefit Tether as well. So this company is going to be much bigger after the merger with EMX, and it's seeking a listing on the New York Stock Exchange, as well as being quoted at the moment on the Toronto Stock Exchange. So there's a lot of good things going for Elemental Altus, in part thanks to the Tether's money. So what Tether's doing is taking a leverage play on gold. And so my question to you guys is, what does Tether know? I mean, we do know that they're connected to Cantor Fitzgerald and therefore Howard Lutnick, and obviously he's Secretary of the Commerce, connected to the government. So does Tether know something, and they've decided that getting some gold on a leverage basis is better than just buying gold and better than buying Bitcoin? Or are they just diversifying out into more assets, and they've decided to point the next diversification in exactly the same direction, but with an even more leverage play than the one they've got already on gold?